Hello, today we're going to be talking about Lexapro withdrawal. My name is Lyle Murphy, the founder of the Alternative to Meds Center. First question is, what is Lexapro? Well, Lexapro is an antidepressant. It is specifically a serotonin type antidepressant. So what this drug is purported to do is to block the reuptake of serotonin so that serotonin will hang out longer, exerting an inhibitory neuromodulatory influence on the synapse. So by keeping the serotonin out there longer, it's buffering impulsive sort of things like the desire to kill oneself, the OCD type ruminations, and it can help force serotonin towards melatonin, which could also increase someone's sleep. It is not, it's called an antidepressant, but it's not what you would consider a mood elevator. It's more like an anti-impulsivity or an anti-rumination sort of anti-anxiety in some way type of medication, which can help people actually feel better because they're not being so plagued with stuff that's overwhelming them. Now, the challenge with blocking the reuptake is the drug itself is not making serotonin. And drugs generally have an issue with sustainability. They tend to either wear off, you need more of them. And the reason is because they're spending the neurochemicals that they're expressing. So again, the Lexapro is not making serotonin. It's forcing it to stay out in the synapse. So if this were a synapse, this were the originating neuron, this is the receptive neuron. So this is where the receptors are. Over here on this side is where the vesicles that hold the serotonin are stored. So something like that, I didn't take the kids to school. Is this a freak out moment? Comes into your awareness, and serotonin is called upon to express itself. So it's released from these vesicles. It exerts an influence over here that says, oh, it's okay if I get the kids to school late. It'll be fine. I'll make there's a good explanation for this and the teacher will understand, sort of inhibition. Now, after that is over, the serotonin is meant to come back into these vesicles so that it can be used again. It's literally a recycling process. It's like, okay, I'll throw it over there, you throw it back. I'll throw it over there, you throw it back. Well, if it's not throwing it back and it's staying out there in that open space in the synapse, typically it degrades into its metabolites, which means that it's no longer serotonin and can no longer exert the same effect. Question number 2. What is Lexapro used for? Well, we kind of covered that in the last question. Lexapro is used for people who are experiencing depression, but specifically the type of depression that has them it's sort of combined with anxiety, would be the target that the allopathic pharmaceutical type-based perspective would probably target for medication like this. Sometimes it's also used for fibromyalgia or other situations where a person feels like there's too much stimulation in their life or not enough sleep, those sorts of things. Question number 3, what do I need to know about Lexapro withdrawal? Well, Lexapro withdrawal is about moderate as far as the complications of this withdrawal. If you're watching this, you probably have the more extreme side of these complications. But when you're withdrawing off of Lexapro, it's sort of like, I don't know if everyone catches this analogy or it's too extreme, and many people probably don't even like this analogy, but it's similar. When somebody's coming off of heroin, the reason why they're in such pain, the reason why this thing is associated with like, oh my God, you're coming off of heroin, that's so bad. Well, it's so bad in that they're hurting everywhere. Their entire body's hurting because the drug has been basically synthetically producing endorphins. When you take that drug away, there's an endorphin and an enkephalin drop, and so suddenly everything is painful. The clothes on your skin might hurt. The pressure of your eyelid on your eyeball might feel like burning, and digestion and even taking a shower might be complicated, right? So when a person goes into endorphin plunge, that's what they experience. Well, when somebody goes into to a serotonin plunge coming off of Lexapro, there's a certain panoply of withdrawal manifestations that they have with that. So since serotonin is inhibitory, the typical withdrawal manifestations of coming off Lexapro look like excitatory things. Excitatory in that a person starts ruminating where they can't stop fight or flight sort of thinking like, oh my God, I'm going to die, or this is going to happen, or I'm panicking, that sort of thing. Where they have anxiety, which of course that level of OCD is a level of anxiety. And also they have problems with their sleep. They may have problems with general impulse control, may even crave things like sugar or simple carbohydrates to try to boost their serotonin temporarily, which again is not a sustainable way to boost your serotonin. There might be other manifestations such as brain zaps, which we'll talk about later what that actually means. Question number 4. What can I do to support my Lexapro withdrawal naturally? Well, what we do here is we transition people on the nutraceuticals slightly prior to doing the withdrawal so that while they're coming down into the serotonin plunge, they've already got something that has built up their serotonin so that they can meet in the middle and not go into the dark recesses of serotonergic deficit hell. And that is the direct precursors to serotonin are tryptophan. Tryptophan is backed up by its cofactors and sort of affiliate members, magnesium and also niacin. So a moderate dose of magnesium, a small amount of niacin can help push tryptophan towards making serotonin. And we use those things in combination with a lot of other inhibitory neurochemical precursor type amino acids and supportive things in order to sort of buffer and prepare the body for this inhibitory plunge that it's going to be going through. Now, with that said, there is another scenario which I have never seen personally. I've read about it in the literature. It's called serotonin syndrome, where people have generally taken more than one antidepressant, and that has caused them to skyrocket their levels of serotonin, which if you have too much of an inhibitory thing, it could cause respiratory distress, and even your heart could, it could be actually fatal. So that serotonin syndrome could also theoretically be derived from taking tryptophan and an antidepressant together long term. So you would not want to do these things long term. We do it here short term because, of course, one is leaving the system, which is the drug, which is the real culprit for potentially creating a serotonin syndrome out, while the nutraceutical, which by itself would not have the capacity to produce serotonin syndrome, in. So we've never seen that effect, and I don't expect we ever will. But you do want to be mindful of that if you're doing that out there. You would not want to combine the antidepressant long-term with tryptophan or 5-HTP for that matter, which is sort of another version of tryptophan. Other things you can do to support your Lexapro withdrawal naturally is to set aside some time in your life to do this. Like being overstressed, being in a situation where you're having too much going on, where people are going to be emotionally challenging you, and you don't have the support around you that you need, you don't want to dive into this thing in a way that could, flip your tea kettle. You want to do this in a way that you have the space, the time, and you're doing it slowly enough so that you can be successful. And that's why people choose a residential center, because sometimes people go through some real ridiculous hell going through these meds. And of course, they want the support around them to be able to pull it off well. And it's not always the best thing that you want your family to be exposed to, because whatever you're going through during this withdrawal is not really you. It's a version of you when there's an imposed neurochemical imbalance that may take some very unusual dynamics. And so when you're doing it in residential center, you're surrounded by people who are familiar with that and not beating up your family with these sorts of things. That's the ideal. Not everyone can do a residential center. So for those of you who can't, slow and steady is a way to get through this, and working with at least someone of a holistic bent who can build up your natural sort of reserves, things that actually are in congruency with your innate to support this withdrawal as you're doing it. Question number 5, what are Lexapro brain zaps? Well, Lexapro brain zaps are probably as a result of the serotonin plunge. Serotonin actually is a neuromodulator. The nervous system sits at a certain resting potential. So you have one nerve, then you have another nerve approximated. In order for one to talk to the other, you need a millivolt drop and an influx of sodium ions in order to create conductivity. Serotonin just makes that less likely. It makes it less likely that you're going to have depolarization. So what do you think happens if you don't have enough serotonin? You're in a serotonin plunge. Things start misfiring and going chaotic, sort of all by themselves. There are, scientific claims that these sort of brain zaps are not damaging. That would be like somebody trying to convince me that pouring water on my computer wouldn't be damaging. I mean, I guess if it's waterproof, but you have delicate electrical circuits in your brain too. You don't want these things zapping in ways that that are not your body's natural way of doing things. So if you're experiencing the brain zaps, this is probably a good indicator that you're going too fast, or even that you need to be supported with other things to help you slide off this medication easier. Nutraceutical things can be enough for many people. Some people might need another type of bridge. One type of bridge medication could be gabapentin. I'm not suggesting gabapentin for the normative Lexapro withdrawal, but if a person's really having a huge problem, this medication, gabapentin, is a lot easier for most people to withdraw off of than the Lexapro. I would use it as drugs to me are the last resort. They're not the first thing you go to. You try the other things first, like slowing down, using nutraceuticals, seeing a naturopath, drinking a lot of water, exercising, doing healthy foods that are not inflammatory, all those sorts of things first. And if you're still getting stuck, gabapentin is a lot less toxic and a lot less ridiculous on the way that it can rewarp your nervous system than a drug like Lexapro. Are there people that have completely absurd reactions to gabapentin? Yes. And there is a specific genetic polymorphism called the GAD genetic polymorphism. People know if they have that because they take gabapentin and it makes them actually more anxious rather than less anxious. It's not as common, but it does happen, and you will see stuff out there on the internet about people having bad reactions to everything, including gabapentin. It's, with anything else, when you're going to try something new, especially when it's a drug, try the smallest amount first. See how you do with that. If it's helping, maybe try a little bit more. But don't just overwhelm yourself with something that could cause you another level of hell that besides the hell that you're already in. Number 6, what are side effects of Lexapro? Well, since there's a delicate balance between the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system as it regards to sexual function, that's usually where you're going to see a problem. Those are the most common side effects. But honestly, the side effects of Lexapro can almost fill an encyclopedia, more than what we'd want to talk about here. But typically, one of the side effects is it's not really fixing the depression. It's giving you the sexual side effects. It's giving you sort of a numbed out, you're not really able to feel the highs or the lows. You're just sort of in this sort of fuzzy range where nothing matters. And, like you've been anesthetized. Other side effects of Lexapro could include, sleeping too much, not being able to feel a sense of drive, losing passion, reward, and then, of course, the other physical side effects. Generally, these things are called side effects of the medication, like somehow like, oh, there's this side effect. No, these are actually effects of the drug, mislabeled as side effects. So most drugs have some sort of effect that's different than the effect that you may want. They call it side effects sort of to try to push it under the rug, but these are really, it's changing the way your nervous system is regulating things. It's changing the way that you feel not only your physical world, but the way you interpret your sensory and your emotional world as well. So those sort of skewings are not just surgical. They're more like a kaleidoscope where you change things and there's a whole different panoply of changes that are the side effects. So I hope this helps. Here at Alternative to Med Center, we have a very high success rate with Lexapro withdrawal. It is a pretty straightforward withdrawal for what we do. We've been at it for now, at the making of this video, we are in our 16th year. We've had a full 15 years. We've entered our 16th year of helping people with Lexapro withdrawal and other antidepressants. So if you need some guidance, please feel free to call. If you're not a candidate for a residential center, we will generally try to help you find somebody in your area that can be of use to you. Thank you very much, and have a sweet day or night, and be well.